How is it going, everybody? I am doing a closer look on the beta snipers now that the beta is over, to see really where we stood with all of them. I'm starting off with the SMLE MK3, the one that most people end up using the longest based on what I was seeing in the beta. It has 10 rounds, which highest amount you can get in here. I never personally used all 10 of the rounds. I ended up reloading around 5, that way I could get the quicker reload rather than waiting for one bullet at a time to go in. It had a fire rate of 53, which was a little bit under average compared to the other 3 that we had. But all in all, it was a well-rounded weapon. It appeared to be a one-shot kill from point blank, so if you really wanted to get in there, you could potentially use it in close quarters effectively. Other than that, it was the stereotypical starter sniper. I liked it for the sole fact that it gave you the option of having the extra ammo, just in case anything bad happened while you were running around and you really needed it. But the times that I used 10 rounds was actually extremely rare, and I never found it personally useful. Now what I was using on this class was an anti-tank grenade with the K rounds, because I found that was honestly extremely easy at taking down the armored cars. You land one grenade and then just finish them with the K rounds. Now even from this range, I didn't have to zero it or anything. I was hitting 72 from the distance. The only time I ever had to zero a weapon was on my Russian, and that was for good reason. I was shooting from A all the way to G, so I kind of expected I was going to have to zero that one. Now this weapon also came in the beta with the option of a carbine, which was just more on the ACOG side of it from what we've seen. It zoomed in roughly the same amount, so it wasn't super effective. It was a little easier to get into the city with it and run around and actually get on target easier than run around with the scope, but I personally still prefer the scope. Moving on to the Russian 1895. This weapon was really fun for the sole fact that it's a lever action. We rarely see the lever action. It had slightly higher damage than the SMLE. Its starting was a marksman scope, which I personally didn't love. I never needed to zoom in that far when I was running around. I like to play the objective, be in the city, and try and get as many points as possible, which is extremely rewarded in this battlefield. Getting up to 1,400 points just by being there, taking the base, plus all the people that you can snipe. Now, the only other thing I had that was a gripe about the weapon was using the K rounds. It felt like it took a little while to actually load the rounds, which was driving me insane. But other than that, there wasn't too many gripes. The other thing you can use, as you can see by the gameplay, is the iron sight, which is actually the primary weapon for the cavalry, besides their saber and handgun. And it's fun to run around with, I won't lie. You feel like you're in an old western flick running around with it. It's an all-around it's a fun weapon. But with having the giant scope, if I could get one of these smaller ones and run around with it, that would make this weapon much more appealing to me personally. But it did have a fire rate of 64. Moving on to the Gewehr 98 with the slowest fire rate of 50. It was an all-around decent weapon. On this guy, for instance, I hit 90 on a body shot, which was higher than any of the other ones I've seen, but that was really the only time that I had been hitting really high with this weapon. All the other ones were in the 70 range, so I'm not sure if I can just say flat out it had the most damage than all the other ones. Like this guy was 75 from this range, so I'm not really sure if it had the most damage per se. But it was definitely a fun gun to use, but with only having 5 rounds, I ended up using the SMLE a little bit more than this, or running around with the Russian, just iron sights. But it was a fun weapon to use. This one also came equipped with the option for the marksman scope, so you can get the range in. This is one of the ones I zeroed for long-range sniping to see if it was still effective. It's effective at taking out snipers, but in terms of points, you will normally, unless you are extremely skilled sniping, will not be at the top of the leaderboard just by looking for snipers to blow the heads off of. But it was a fun weapon to use. And, I mean, as you can see here, just the damage that this thing is capable of made me wonder if it had the most damage, but with such slow fire rate, I didn't care for it. The Gewehr M95 was actually my personal favorite in the group. Its fire rate was 67. It was really nice having the extra fire rate. You could really put rounds down range when you were online, getting into the city and just taking out anyone and everyone that stood in your way. And that being mixed along with a medic, which is normally what I was running with. My friend, they were always running their medic, so you two teaming up at long range, if I got the hit, their next shot was a kill. If they got a shot, my shot was a kill. It really effectively was able to go through. And with me using the K rounds and all that, if they ran an anti-tank, we could take care of anything like that was coming in. The other thing that really was going for this weapon was the fact that while aiming, and if you shot while aiming, it would actually load while you were still aiming, which I think this was the primary weapon for a lot of people coming from Call of Duty, in terms of if they were not quick scoping, for instance. Because even if they miss their shot, they can stay zoomed in and continue to put rounds down range to get used to using the weapon. Now, it did have the lowest damage, but I didn't seem to ever have a problem with it when playing. I was still able to one-shot people from D to the cliff, or for instance D to A. I was still able to one-shot everybody as long as I hit their head. But with this weapon, I was trying to play as close to the objectives as I could and trying to support my team getting into the objectives. So I was mainly up close quite a bit, which is where I was going for the body shots. I just wanted to connect, and if they turned and looked at me, I had the 1911, which would be a one-shot in that scenario. Now, the other thing you could do with this weapon was actually you could use an iron sight, which I did use a couple times, but I actually didn't have any gameplay footage of. It corrupted the file for it, so I actually have nothing for that. But running in with a fast bolt action with the iron sight was very effective, especially with a weapon like this. But I still prefer the sniper scope above all. But with all that being said, this one just allowed me the freedom to run, play the objective, and do everything as I saw necessary, which is why it's my personal favorite. And I saw a main amount of people using the Russian 1895, which is understandable. It hits like a truck and it's really good. But that's the snipers and what I experienced when playing with them. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next episode. I believe the next one I will be doing support, so look forward to seeing that next. Peace.